Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Business Live. Coming up this evening, Public Interest and Accountability Committee calls on Parliament to investigate utilization of Petroleum Holding Fund. Also coming up, Cocoa Board signs $600 million loan scheme for key sector projects. And later in the bulletin, government signs contract to acquire new locomotive trains and rolling stock for new and existing rail lines in the country. Stay tuned for the details. I'm back after the break. Welcome back to the bulletin. My name is Sandra Essen. I'm anchoring from home. In our first story tonight, Ghana's cocoa regulator, Cocoa Board, has signed a loan facility for productivity enhancement programs for the sector. The $600 million syndicated receivable-backed loan, which was signed in November last year, follows 2 years of negotiations between Cocoa Board and development finance institutions, including African Development Bank. The fund is expected to shore up local production of cocoa, especially as demand soars amid the coronavirus pandemic. Charles Saite has more in the report.
Already, Cocoa Board has drawn $200 million from the AFDB loan to embark on various cocoa projects, including pollination and pruning. Joseph Aboagye-Wiafe is Chief Executive of Cocoa Board, expressing confidence in increasing cocoa yields to 1.1 million tons of cocoa by 2026 and 2027 crop year.
Ghana Cocoa Board has set out to create a modernized, resilient, and competitive cocoa environment where all stakeholders strive towards a sustainable cocoa economy in which cocoa farmers and their communities thrive. Towards this end, Honorable Chairman, Cocoa Board seeks to raise the current productivity levels from 500 kilograms per hectare to an average of 1,000 kilograms per hectare by 2027.
Chief Executive of Cocoa Board, Joseph Aboagye-Wiafe, has downplayed a report from the Reuters news agency that international risk underwriters pulled back from the 2020 and 2021 cocoa syndication loan, citing COVID-19 risks. Speaking during the launch of the AFDB $600 million syndicated loan facility, Joseph Aboagye-Wiafe reiterated that Cocoa Board was in good standing with its international lenders, who are all prepared to sign up for the loan facility in September.
Management of Cocoa Board has cited various reportages on Cocoa Board syndication in newspapers and online news portals as Cocoa Board's inability to raise its planned $1.3 billion through a syndicate of banks, citing COVID-19 risk as the main reason. Management wishes to draw the attention of the international community and the general public that these publications are false and do not reflect the current engagements between Cocoa Board and the banks and financial institutions. It is worthy of note that Cocoa Board has prepaid the 2019-2020 loan facility in June 2020.
Meanwhile, Board Chair of Cocoa Board, Hackman Owusu-Wajiman, has challenged Cocoa Board to explore domestic ways of pre-financing cocoa projects in the coming years.
The Minister would like to see us be able to pay for things ourselves and not go for loans. Despite the skillful accounting which has made us pay our syndicated loan 3 months ahead of time, we need to reinvigorate ourselves and make our minister happy and our president happy, and for that matter, his colleague in Côte d'Ivoire, Alassane Ouattara, also happy.
JICA and AFDB agreed to provide a $3.5 billion joint facility under the fourth phase of the Enhanced Private Sector Assistance for Africa initiative. The loan marks the first time JICA and AFDB will be providing direct co-financing under the EPSA4 as well as First Non-Sovereign projects.
Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, says it wants to know how the 1.5 billion cedi Petroleum Holding Fund was utilized. The committee says it has uncovered that the said amount has not been accounted for, and it's therefore calling on Parliament to summon the Finance Ministry for clarity. This was made known by the chairman of the committee during the launch of the 2019 annual report in Accra.
The 2019 annual report by the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, revealed that Ghana has so far received $5.9 billion as revenue in the petroleum sector since the beginning of oil production in Ghana. Total oil production in 2019 went up by 15% as a result of higher volumes from the Jubilee and Sankofa Jinami fields. Despite this, the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, says there is less to show on how proceeds from the commodity have been utilized. At the launch of the 2019 annual report, Chairman of PIAC, Aboagye, believes it is about time Parliament and all mandated institutions demand accountability.
We've done a lot of engagement with Parliament, and we can only continue to engage Parliament to address these issues. But I will say that since PIAC is a citizen-based committee, we need your support in this type of these matters when it comes up. That is the only way probably we can put much pressure on Parliament, because Parliament also represents us anyway. So if we, the committee, present issues to Parliament and there is a seemingly lack of interest, or maybe the interest is not so high in Parliament, I think citizens' backup will also be useful in putting some pressure on Parliament to act. And I think it is the very reason you are preferred. That is why we are also saying so.
For the third consecutive year, the Public Interest and Accountability Committee is raising concerns about the remaining funds, which amounted to 1.5 billion cedis yet to be accounted for. The committee is also making a proposal for the oil fund investment to be varied. Here is Technical Manager at PIAC, Mark Ajiman.
Because currently they are invested in safe instruments, so basically sovereign bonds. So we have recommended or proposed that this qualifying instrument should be varied so that parts of our petroleum funds will be invested in low-risk instruments, meaning low returns, and parts should be invested in high-risk instruments that will guarantee high returns. So that is to regards of the operations of the IAC. They are in place, they are restructuring IAC. They've met a lot of stakeholders and they are putting final touches to that restructuring process.
Meanwhile, gas production in 2019 was the highest in the country.
The Minister for Railway Development, Joe Garte, has signed an official agreement with Chinese suppliers for the acquisition of some modern locomotive trains and standard gauge rolling stock for construction of new railway lines in the country. The $230 million investment is to ensure commuter safety.
There will be 35 standard gauge trains which are being provided to us. Now, the total cost of this is $243,600,000. The supplier is Dongfang Electric International Corporation. As we're told by them through the Zoom meeting, is one of the big state-owned Chinese companies which is involved in supply of rolling stock. Our old lines are narrow gauge. And bear in mind that these narrow gauge lines were built, some of them in the 19th century. For example, the Accra to Isawom line was built from 1910 to 1912. And between 1910 and 1912, it has not seen any major rehabilitation, apart from the rehabilitation that was recently done by government after 2018. And so basically what we have done as government is that we decided to rehabilitate some of the narrow gauge lines. We rehabilitated a section of the Accra to Kumasi line, that's the Accra to Isawom section of the line, and the Accra to Tema section of the line. We rehabilitated the Takoradi, secondary Takoradi to, the Kojo Krom to Takwa section of the line. The total number of railway network that we have rehabilitated is about 120 kilometers. It's narrow gauge. It is the Old Testament. It takes smaller trains, lower trains. I mean, just our trains travel maybe 35, 40 kilometers per hour. our entire new network is going to be a standard gauge network, which is 3,681 kilometers. That's what we propose. The Temai-Pakadam line is a standard gauge line. It's being constructed just now. The line that is being constructed in the western region is a standard gauge line. Last week we signed a contract with Amandi, which will lead to a total of 102 kilometers of standard gauge line, the longest single stretch of standard gauge line in the country. What is being negotiated on the eastern railway line is a standard gauge line. What is going to be done from Juapon, because the Pakadam line passes through Juapon in the water region, and the line to Paga will take off from Juapon. What is going to be done from Juapon right to Paga, about 700 kilometers, it's a standard gauge line. We don't have any standard gauge trains in the country. What you see, the Ghana flag trains are narrow gauge lines.
Banks are being urged to re-strategize in the wake of the pandemic. I'll be telling you more about that when we return after this break. Welcome back, and if you're just joining us, this is Business Live. More stories to come. And the managing director of Ecobank Ghana, Daniel Sakite, says the impact of COVID-19 has affected ways of doing business. He believes banking services will never be the same even after the pandemic, urging financial institutions to re-strategize.
Look, I think society will not be the same post-COVID era, even if a vaccine is found. And talking to a couple of individuals, we believe that one of the side effects or positive side effects of COVID-19 is drawing our attention to the basic hygiene factors. If for nothing at all, I think a lot more people have now imbibed, have now followed closely the hygiene factors, and you see people washing their hands more. So even COVID aside, I think that communicable diseases that are contracted through person-to-person infections can be limited because of the attention that we've had from some of the educational efforts that have gone on and are linked to COVID-19. As to whether it will be the same or not, if you link it, still staying in the health, and I'll attempt to have some basic ideas to what the health professionals like Dr. Nkengason does. I think the key thing is that how do we apply the lessons that we've learned from COVID-19? And I talked about hand washing, I talked about sanitizing, I talked about social distancing. The key thing is our ability to build health systems that are resilient. If we, by virtue of having to deal with COVID-19, there is greater investment in health facilities, then we would have a positive spin in terms of our ability to cope with similar effects that may come later. If I take it to the economic sphere, specifically into banking, banking will never be the same. One, for most of our clients, having been able to access the same services through the digital channels, it has been a game changer. It is true that most people were concerned about the safety of transacting online. Most people were concerned about the safety of accessing their accounts on their phones. However, COVID-19 accelerated that push because we did not have a choice but to transact on our phones. We did not have a choice but to access our accounts through digital means. For us, the banks, the game changer is that we have also been able to test our systems during this period. We have staff who have been able to work from home. We had to close our contact center for about 48 hours, and our staff were able to take calls in their various houses and still serve our clients.
He further added that clients will have to make use of digital platforms as banks adjust to the new normal.
In the first part, our focus was, apart from ensuring the health and safety of our staff and our clients, we also focused on granting clients access to their finances, access to their bank balances, access to be able to make basic transactions. And then you will then realize that working with other collaborators such as the telco, we granted access to funds either using the bank's mobile app, or for third-party transactions, relied on connectivity to national platforms such as GIPS and other related platforms to be able to facilitate the transfer of funds from the accounts as we have it and into other third-party accounts held at other banks or through the mobile accounts held with the telco. So we had succeeded in one, ensuring safety, to allowing clients to transact at the basic level. Now, when I say we are at the second phase for we the banks, that second phase is how do we exist normally with COVID? And existing normally with COVID in this sense means that we now have to start conceptualizing that the digital investments we've made in our digital platform will now start serving the purposes for which they were made. We are focused on being able to serve and deliver services to clients using the mobile channels. Today, that preparedness is what has allowed us to scale to the second phase. One, to ensure that we can relate with our clients in their homes, in their offices. We have now had to exercise a new work environment. And in that new work environment, a certain proportion of our staff are at each time out of the office. So we then have to allow people to work from home and work from other destinations. For the bank in particular, that means that making sure that we have robust systems to ensure that when people work from home and access the systems, the bank's structures are not compromised. That means that adequate protection from cyber crimes. It also means educating our clients as to the importance of complying with the various safety measures that we have specified in their access to this digital platform.
Welcome back to the program, and the new normal is working from home, and I'm coming to you from my house. My name is Sandra Essenam Apeno. Let's do more stories now. Travel and tour company Aboagye-Wiafe Travel Limited has revealed that 46% of Ghanaians want to travel out of the country to various destinations within the next 6 months, according to a survey conducted by the company to gauge people's eagerness to move beyond the country's borders. 86% out of the over 500 sample size on social media want to travel within the next 6 to 12 months. Let's hear from the marketing manager of Aboagye-Wiafe Travel and Tour Limited, who's the person of Sewa Boatin Benin.
I mean, before COVID-19 got into the system, we had planned for a whole year's trip. We had local trips and we had international trips from January through to December 2020. We had to cancel all of these trips. We also have cancelled incoming tours. We had students coming in from Indiana University and they had to cancel. And that was a huge amount of money they were bringing into our economy, about $100,000 and all of that. Apart from that, it's also our staff.
That's quite a lot. Did you have to make some refund?
Well, yes, we had to refund the deposit they made for the trip. I mean, they were coming to stay in hotels, they were coming to use rent buses, they were coming to eat in our local restaurants. So it's not just us. A lot of the industry, the hospitality industry, would have benefited from that incoming trip to Ghana.
Yes, go ahead, please.
As staff, we had to cut down on salaries. There is 19 of us, and we had to cut up to about 55% of salaries. But in general, most of our clients are waiting to travel when it's safe. Survey we did a few weeks ago, we asked clients how soon they wanted to travel. And the feedback, 46% of them said that within 6 months, if it is safe, they are ready to travel. 40% said that between 6 and 12 months, they will travel. 14% of them said that they will travel late 2021. And as I said earlier, over 2,000 of our clients, people that had already traveled with us, also want to travel when it is safe. We are aware that most countries are relaxing the restrictions on the COVID lockdowns. Dubai is opening up on the 7th to tourists. They have sent out guidelines on how to keep the tourists safe. And so we are monitoring all this around the world, including in Ghana here when it's safe and the airports are open, so that we can bring in people and also send people outside. And that is what inspired us to bring out our post-COVID travel.
Well, Well, personally, I would love to travel next month because I'm tired of COVID. But that's how we wrap up for the program this evening. My name is Sandra Esinam. I can log on to myjoyonline.com/business for more business news update. But I'm surely back at 7 p.m. on JoyNews Prime with more business news update. Thanks so much for watching. I've been doing this from home.